Hello, Hearties. Welcome to the Hearties Hotline, your connection to Hope Valley. I am Cami Clements, the Hooked Heartie.
Hey, I'm Sarah Nitch, and I'm the Hawkeyed Heartie.
And we are here today to talk about Season 12, Episode 9, Buried Treasure. But first, Sarah, it's been a really, really long day. I say we go out and have a drink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I need a drink.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard you say that, but okay.
Oh, right. I don't drink. So
Oh, I know. How about some apple juice?
oh, perfect. Apple juice it is.
Cheers.
You know, it was going to happen one day.
Well, they brought it up so many times now, right? Like it's just an inside joke instead of just being a cute scene.
Okay, this is not the episode we're talking about, but I just have to mention it. Did you hear about all of the hidden Easter eggs in the house during the dream? Yes.
Yes. Yes, during the dreams. I did hear about that. I didn't hear about it until after we had filmed that recap. Or we would have talked about it then. But yes, there were so many. I heard that apple juice was one of them.
Yeah, I found it. Apple juice was on the table in a pitcher. You know, I don't think that they're even going to have champagne at their wedding. I think they're going to have apple juice.
Well, then the kids can toast. That'll be cute.
It's just so refreshing.
It is. And it's like you just like always have it on hand. It's just ready to go.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those kids. Let's talk about the oldest kid, Angela. She won the tour.
I really loved how this started. Showing them getting ready to go and just like all the nerves between all of them, the different approaches each one of them were taking in preparing for going on this tour, because that would be such a huge, our kids aren't old enough to be at this stage quite yet, but just the whole concept going out with your almost adult child and trying to figure out anything about their future and long term and what that's going to look like without you.
I know. I mean, it's bad enough when your firstborn goes to college, and now you're sending your firstborn out into the world who is blind and who you have taken care of their entire life.
And, I'm sure that there aren't a lot of places like this, which is, they hadn't even heard of this college before Elizabeth brought it to their attention. None of them had really ever thought of this as a possibility. It's not like the average student who, as they're growing, as they're aging, they're thinking about what if they go to college, their parents are thinking about what if they go to college, or any of those things. This is a brand new idea brought into their life that they are not prepared for, that they've not been thinking about for very long.
Right. One thing I have to say about the students at the school, when I was watching the episode, I could not tell if they were visually impaired in real life or not, because they were very convincing. Yeah. We've since learned that at least a number of them are actually visually impaired. And I just think that that is so cool to hire actors from the visually impaired community to represent people from that community in When Calls the Heart. The time that I remember most specifically that happening was years ago in the 70s in the Waltons.
Oh, yes. I think I've talked about that with you.
Grandma Walton had a stroke in real life. Will Greer, who played the grandfather, he went to her home and he found her.
Wow.
So they changed up the storyline a little bit so that grandma would not appear to be missing. And then the next episode, grandma had had a stroke and she was in the hospital recovering, and they never showed her, but they showed grandpa in the lobby trying to get up with some flowers. And when she was healthy enough to come back to work, she came back on the show as a recovered stroke victim. And so just seeing where those moments are so honored, it adds another feather in the cap of things that they are doing right.
Yeah, no, so much, so much so. Absolutely.
I remember thinking to myself, if they are not actually blind, they are really, really good actors. I haven't seen somebody act this well as a visually impaired person since Melissa Sue Anderson in Little House on the Prairie. That's kind of how I imagine Vienna.
I had to look that up when she started on the show because she was very convincing. I was just,
Yeah.
was it, and it's an added stressor when it's like, okay, this is a child actor who doesn't even have that much experience acting in general, and they're able
Mm-hmm.
to pull off something that out of the ordinary, huge skill.
Luckily, she's got a fantastic actor in the family that can coach her. But no, you are absolutely right. And can you imagine the golden opportunity for her getting to be with people who are visually impaired, to get their experiences and just to glean information and character traits off of them and how they've lived their lives, and it it was fantastic.
Absolutely. I loved it. And I thought that the sets they made up for the school and everything was lovely. I know it's hard when they have to like make up sets, usually right there in Jamestown, using
Yeah.
some of their existing sets and making them look like something else. I know that's challenging, but it was very believable. It was very nice to be able to see like a whole new place,
Yeah.
and and that gives hope that if Angela goes there in a future season, we might still see her at school and not just have her completely be missing from the show while she's
Yeah.
away. So that, that would be nice to still see her from time to time there at school.
I mean, I'm not in a hurry to see her leave the show, and I don't know anybody who is. So,
Yeah.
all right. And the other thing is orchestra, clubs, dances, read alouds, all of these things that Angela has never experienced before. And with materials and resources being so limited back then, I know that they wouldn't have said it without backing it up with some research. But that's the way places like that are. They would have gotten the resources and it would have been completely new for
Hmm.
someone who has grown up under her mother's hand,
And in a
even
small
being
town.
in small towns and in a very small world. And her mother even schooled her. So she probably did not often leave the home. And now she's got this huge place. And did you, I know you did, but did you notice the irony of the switching of opinions? And
I did. And it's so common, I think, with mothers and daughters that daughters are trying to prove themselves and push back. But when you get that freedom, a lot of times it is scary and you realize, oh, wait, what was I pushing for? This is going to be hard. Um, and so it felt very true. It felt just so real.
so real. And you could see in Natasha's face that Minnie was using a lot of energy and a lot of courage to get these words out, because if it were up to her, she would probably want to have her daughter home more. But on the other hand, she saw her daughter come alive with people who were similar to her in situation. And she saw her daughter being able to mingle with people in a way that was never possible before. And so, even though she doesn't want to let her daughter go, she knows. She knows this is the best thing for her, but she still says, try it. Try it. Just like you tried sledding. When you get to the bottom, if you're not smiling from ear to ear and you don't want to go back up the hill and slide down again with all your friends, fine. You can come home.
Reverse psychology, parenting at its best. Just try it. Just you don't have to like it. It'll be fine.
Oh, and not to mention the fact that Joseph comes in and he hears every word of it, and you can see how proud he is of both of them, but especially Minnie right there, because I mean, this is the woman who was saying, "You don't have your scarf? It's a scarf, Minnie.
It's a scarf. It wasn't snowing out. It was like
It didn't even look cold, you know?
no,
And
no.
you're gonna be on a train, and then you're going to be inside the school, you know? It was a beautiful story, and it was a beautiful arc for all of
All
them.
of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was.
And it was such a great way to set up some very other funny scenes with them not being there to open up their cafe. I even forgot what was happening for a moment when they're sitting there and they're like, where is everybody? I was like, yeah, where is everybody? And then I'm like, oh, they're not there. Oh.
Before we move back to Hope Valley, I just have to say I loved Clementine so much. Her enthusiasm, her excitement. Let's go take a tour of your future. You know, like, of course you're coming here.
Right.
And
very optimistic.
oh yes. And then it was just so adorable. The blind leading the blind, you know. She was so cute and
Yes.
bubbly and vivacious. She was the perfect person to play that role.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was beautifully cast. It was beautifully set up. Everything was written beautifully. It really just gave just a lovely story for this family.
And some lovely emotion.
And some emotions. Big emotions for parents.
Woo! Judging from what we're going to talk about next, I think I could say this. If we had drinks, I would toast to a successful working relationship. And the funny thing is, I'm out. So
you're out. Yeah. I was drinking my tea for a while, so
if we had drinks, because you have a drink, but we don't have drinks.
exactly.
Then may it continue to work. Are you surprised that they didn't just go to the saloon? Because I kind of was.
I actually loved that they didn't. I mean, it would have been fine if they had.
No,
It wouldn't
I
have
love
seemed
that they didn't. I just thought it was strange that they sat there when the two of them were struggling so badly. I'm like, let's just go to the saloon.
I took it. So first of all, I think if it had been random people that they didn't know, well, or that Lucas didn't know very well, they probably would have. I think the fact that it was Mike, who is very close with Lucas. They've had quite a long working relationship. They're very good friends. And I think the fact that it was them almost gave it an additional, like, it's not that they're putting them out. It's almost just like, oh, they're going to the trouble of trying to fix this for us. So we'll just take whatever they give us, whatever the situation is. But I took that to really be a stronger indication of what maybe, hopefully, could be the beginning of a long relationship, friendship, more. Who knows? But we've already had some very fun scenes between these two characters. And if the first real sort of date, not really, because it was a working dinner, but the first time someone asks someone really to join them privately, that was adorable. That they're just sitting there eating scraps of things and cold chicken wings
and pickles.
and pickles. It was basically the introduction of charcuterie boards is basically what happened here. Okay, they didn't exist back then, I don't think. We might need to fact check that. But basically, Hickam has now invented the charcuterie board through a series of mishaps.
That's Ned's domain.
Maybe, but we've also agreed that Hickam has had every job in the world. So I kind of like that he just had to throw something together, and that's what it was.
Well, and don't forget yesterday's bread.
And yesterday's bread, which doesn't sound horrible. It's just
no, it's not freshly baked, but it was just baked yesterday. What's the big deal? But
yeah, freshly baked yesterday. But also, it made sense. I do want to defend them. It made sense that Mike and May were not there because they were dealing with a major situation, which we'll get into later. They were very, very justified in forgetting.
Completely.
However, I want to point out that Toby and Cooper were tasked with helping with dinner service, and they were nowhere to be found. And I don't think they were helping with any of the other issues going on in Hope Valley.
Yeah, they were supposed to serve and clean up. I guess they thought that since
no one was there,
no one was there to cook and bake, that why should we sit here?
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. That would be funny to have a scene with the two of them sitting there like, how long do you think we have to stay here if nobody else is here?
That would have been so funny. Let's rewind just a little bit to that proposal of dinner. Lee checks the infamous Edie Martell into the hotel. That was a very interesting conversation. Edie and Lee never really met.
Not officially, no.
No, not before this. She's apologizing to him because she knows that it's basically her fault. Don't get me wrong, Edwin had a very big part, but it was because of Edie's interactions that Lucas and Lee had a falling out. And so I'm glad to see that she is not too much of a lawyer, that she can't apologize for putting a rift in between friends, even if it is just business. Also loved her description of the newest permanent temporary resident of Hope Valley.
That was hilarious. Oh,
How many oxymorons can we put in one sentence?
she's got such a great personality, and she's just really fun.
I am enjoying Edie's character so much. I really, really am. And the more she's on the show, the more relieved I am that she was not in on any scams, that her hands were tied.
Yeah.
And that she does have a good heart. She's not trying to play anybody, because I think that she would be a very good match for our governor.
Yes. Agreed.
And there is somebody else who apparently has that same opinion, because he was over at the bar drying glasses and
Cabot is the most expressive actor on the show.
he is brilliant at facial expressions.
Yes, and I think that my favorites are when he is in the background, because your attention gets drawn to him even though he's not the focal point of the conversation, and it just adds like this extra element that I don't know if it's written that way for him to do that, or if he's just he knows he's in the background and so he's really playing the part. But that was great to be just like, there's my buddy and I see what's going down. I see it.
And I'm okay with it because she apologized.
Yes.
Did you see how many background reactions we had in this episode?
Well, I wasn't counting, but I did see several. Yes.
You weren't counting. I didn't count, but
really? I mean, you usually do.
I didn't. You're welcome. I'll spare you this time. But I mean, just right there are two in the saloon. You've got Lee with Edie and Lucas talking, and then you've got Ava with Lee, Hickam, Rosemary, and Elizabeth talking. We'll get to that in a second. But then, because there were so many background reactions with main characters, I started watching. I mean, I do this anyway because I've been a background actor. So
yeah.
So I like to watch the background actors to see if they're really reacting to the scene. And they were. They were doing some really great reactions. I'll tell you, I know it wasn't in this episode, but in the last episode, I specifically watched them when Elizabeth was on the radio with Eileen Bennett, and they started like, what's she doing?
Yeah, she's arguing with our Mrs. Thornton.
She did not. Oh, did you hear her? Yay for the background actors. Yeah. But first, before we go to the other background scene, we need to talk about a scene that very much happened in the forefront of the livery. All the ranchers are in his back pocket, and he blocked the path. What do I do?
I love that Henry is like the confidant for everybody, the person that people go to when they just have nowhere else to go. Like,
Sarah?
oh, what did I do? What?
Henry Gowan has become the new Abigail Stanton.
Okay. Very interesting. Full circle. Full circle on this character development.
Not to mention the fact that he's hopelessly in love with her.
Yeah, I mean that definitely impacts the situation a little bit, but
Think about it. Think about it. He is talking Joseph through his problems. He is talking Lucas through his problems. He talked Elizabeth through her very emotional state when we were wondering what the heck was going on back in season 10.
Mm-hmm.
He has become the confidant. He has become the person that everyone goes to for help.
Not to mention all the children this year.
Bingo!
Wow. Well, I mean, when one character leaves a show, you just gotta have somebody else step up. So I guess, go with the least likely character and then just spend years developing him. And eventually you've got the need met. Okay, so they're in the livery. Lucas has gone to Henry and poured his heart out what the problem is. He basically knows what he has to do. It's kind of interesting why he's even there, because he just wants to know that somebody's got his back. He knows that Henry will.
He needs to know that somebody's got his back. He needs to know how to properly go about it.
Yeah.
And he needs to hear it said out loud by someone else.
Yeah.
There are so many times when I have to hear something said out loud by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I say it out loud, it becomes a little clearer, but if someone else says it out loud, it's uh-huh. And the truth just descends on me. And speaking of truth, Henry was straight up truthful with him. You might lose your governorship, but you'll get your park.
Yeah. And I think even as he said that, he knew that was what Lucas probably even needed to hear. Like, yeah, you're probably not going to make it through this the way you want to, but your original goal will get met. You will be able to leave behind the legacy you wanted to, even if you don't get what you wanted.
And the other interesting thing is, Lucas specifically says, I'm sorry, Henry. I know you wanted to stay out of politics. How does Henry end the conversation? I'll write something up.
Yeah, he's right there. Henry wanted to stay out of politics when there was too much politics involved, really.
Ooh.
I mean, this isn't politics. This is Lucas doing the right thing.
Yeah.
This is Lucas setting things right.
But there's going to be a big political upheaval as a result. But Henry is still offering to write it, even though it looks as if he's not technically working for Lucas's team at the moment.
Yeah, but I think that's why it has to be him.
Oh, definitely.
Edwin wouldn't write it.
Oh, not a chance in,
He'd be out of there. He'd be go on to his next interview. the next political party.
And then just happen to be on the next train that the governor is traveling on.
Yeah. I just think it's 100% not about politics, but it's Henry is firmly on the side of what is the right thing to do now. That is his purpose. And he couldn't do that with Lucas when Lucas was not aligning with his values. So it wasn't necessarily, I don't want to be involved in politics. It was, this is not sitting right. This is not aligning with what I need to be doing in my life. So I need to take a step back.
Because it's what he used to do.
Yeah. And so now that it is aligning, he's perfectly fine with that. And I think because it does come come back to. It's not that Henry doesn't want to be involved in playing odds and trying to negotiate things. He just wants to be on the right side of things because he was giving advice to Allie and Oliver. He's been giving advice to other people about other things that are going to get people
Ruffled?
they're gonna ruffle feathers. They're gonna have some skirmishes. There's gonna be issues with some of the things going on, and I don't get any vibe that Henry won't be there to support people in those situations. In fact, I love to see him fully involved with the kids in their situations, backing them up as well. Especially up against McGinty. That'd be really great to see Henry involved in that kind of a discussion and conversation or fight even.
You know what it reminds me of? Henry and Lee are kind of doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was sitting right. Lee pulled out and went home. Now
Mm-hmm.
things are sitting right and they've talked things over. And so not only are they friends again, but it looks like they'll work together again.
Yeah.
And so Henry pulled a Lee.
Yeah.
Or Lee pulled a Henry. I don't know which one.
Goes back and forth.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Shall we talk about that young lady, as Lee calls her, who did all of that great background acting and tried to eavesdrop in the background?
Sure, let's talk about that.
Well, for one thing, we know that Lee was not suspicious of her at all. We know that for sure now.
Yeah.
He was disgruntled that she was running up the tab. I'm still mad at her for running up that much of a tab. You do not buy a round of drinks on someone else's dime. And when you're trying to hide from people, that just does not sit right.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into it. I know you and I are both a little frustrated with this storyline, the way it worked out.
It
Red
wasn't
herrings.
what I thought. It wasn't.
No,
Yeah.
red herrings are always hard because anytime you have so many things going on in a season or in a movie, you got to throw in some things to keep people guessing, which totally get. And you usually know there's going to be a red herring somewhere and you just don't know which thing it is.
Mm-hmm.
Which thing isn't going to actually end up being connected to the story the way you think it is. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't mind that happening. I don't mind that we were very suspicious of Ava. Turned out nothing we really thought was true about her.
Right.
She was mixed up with some con artists, but she wasn't a con artist. She really didn't have any evil intentions, just basically wanted to hide out. But like you said, she was running up the tab. She was not making very smart choices. She was being very mysterious, very sneaky, and technically she sort of did steal the trunk in a way.
She did steal the trunk.
Not willingly. She thought she didn't realize they were going to actually bring it to her, but still, I mean, I'll give her that. She probably didn't think it was going to actually show up there. And I will also say, hilarious. Okay. Like, even though that wasn't my favorite storyline, the part with her sneaking the trunk out the window, Rosemary and Elizabeth like trying to sneak up there to catch her, almost catching her, but then not catching her, and her dropping it over the side, ending with my absolute favorite scene ever.
Yes.
Okay, not ever, but like definitely of the episode. Really,
Oh, yes.
this was hilarious.
Yes.
Is Hickam bringing it back in? Okay, so there's a movie I watched a long time ago. It was one of those really crazy movies that had a ton of famous people in it, but it was not really a very good movie. was
Those
called,
do exist.
right? It was called Once Upon a Crime, and it had John Candy, Sybil
Yep.
Shepherd was in it, and it takes place in Europe somewhere, and all these cast of characters are like thrown together. They're
Okay.
like none of them know each other, right? But they all just
Kind of
happen
like
to be in,
Clue. They're thrown
kind of like
together,
Clue.
kind of like Clue.
But what happens is somebody was murdered and their body was actually put into a suitcase, and this suitcase keeps showing up. And all it was like a dark comedy. These people thought it was their suitcase and picked it up, and they were like taking it somewhere, and then they opened it and real like and then people are getting accused of the murder. And no, that's not my suitcase. Oh, I said it was my suitcase. It's not my suitcase. At one point, I think Sybil Shepherd threw it out the window of a moving train to get rid of it because she's just like, this is like a curse. And then somebody like ran up to the was like chasing the train, like, you forgot your suitcase, and like threw it back in. And it was just crazy. But it just had that vibe of like, I'm trying to get rid of this thing, and it just keeps popping back up where I don't want it. And Hickam being just the perfect person to
Be the patsy.
yeah, like unknowingly, I'm trying to help. And
that was very thoughtful of you.
thanks so much. Just the whole thing was so comedically well timed
Yeah.
and really gave a nice like comic relief to a show that also had some drama going on. So
Yeah.
I did love that aspect of it, even though you kind of get disappointed with like, oh, I thought that was going somewhere much bigger.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget they kept the gimmick going because he pulled the trunk out when she left in the Mountie cars.
Which was so funny. I'm like, hit them. Have you not realized yet? It's not her trunk.
Standing there, Rosemary and me and Elizabeth and Nathan, they're not going to stop him. They just laugh and smile and watch him run after the car. I'm like, call him back.
Oh goodness.
So yes, I thought that this would be much bigger. I never thought that there was anything going on with Ava and Wyatt, but I thought that was an interesting twist that some fans thought of. But now we definitely know that it's not that way.
Right.
I totally buy the running. I totally buy the impersonating two people in town because one proved to be way too difficult.
Oh, I picked the wrong cover story. Yeah.
Yeah, I really wonder why she didn't just start with Rosemary. She seems to have so many more skills for
Yes.
Rosemary.
Yes.
But I just I cannot I cannot get over that she never meant to put you out so much. That's what she did.
That's all she did was put people out. Really?
She did was put people out. So,
Borrowed clothes.
clothes, food, job, place to stay.
An uncountable amount of grilled cheese sandwiches.
And, especially if she's running from trouble. I mean, yeah, she crossed the border into Canada, but she's still running from the law because he blamed her. Wouldn't she want to have a bit of a lower profile in said small town? Because it's a small town. Word is going to get out really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in order to make the story plausible for her to be doing all of these things, for them to add the suspicion so that viewers would think maybe she's part of some of these scams. I can see, you have to suspend disbelief a little bit, but I can see kind of just her being written kind of as a little bit ditzy, a little bit not really thinking things through very well. And I mean, to be fair, she probably wasn't. I mean, anybody can get taken advantage of, but in that specific situation that she described, it did sound like she was more than average in the gullible category of being taken advantage of. Maybe she just really doesn't think things through, which, yeah, is not my favorite character or solution to the character questions, but it is plausible. It does make sense. There are people that don't think things through.
Well, here's a moment of comedy gold that definitely proves your theory of her not thinking things through and being a tiny bit ditzy. Probably one of my favorite lines in the whole episode. Do you read all the telegrams? I transcribe them. That's how it works.
Yeah,
How do
like,
you think we get telegrams?
yeah, like I would understand someone that age now being told about a telegram, not understanding how it works because we don't use them anymore much at all, if ever. Like I've never personally sent a telegram or received a telegram.
Nope.
I do think they still exist, but
I don't think they
not,
exist anymore, but when we were kids,
yeah,
I
I
did
mean,
hear of
I still
people
heard
getting
about them.
telegrams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that it would make sense in today's society to not fully understand what that was. But since it was the main form of communication back then, because phones had only been around for a few years, really,
Yeah.
very, very much, like in a lot of locations anyway. Yeah, I feel like you should know a little bit more about how that works.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but one thing I will say, it caused Rosemary to have three very distinct responsibilities in
Okay.
this episode.
Mm-hmm.
She was responsible for coining a new vocabulary word,
Mm-hmm.
thieved. I don't know that I have ever heard thieved as a past tense verb. I don't know I've ever heard it, not even in period
Feel
piece.
like I've heard it, but it's not common.
So that is now our new vocabulary word coined by
Okay.
Rosemary. And number two, it caused her to be local law enforcement for a few hours. I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
And number three, it caused her to be responsible for making Elizabeth very dizzy and pulling her arm out of its socket. Poor Elizabeth's arm. Poor arm.
It was adorable though.
Getting dragged around so much.
It was really another Lucy and Ethel moment.
Oh, 115%. Yes, completely.
And I like that they've leaned into that a little more the last year or so with their friendship.
So, with the law enforcement, this is going to sound really, really strange, but it is something that I have noticed. And I don't know if they're doing this on purpose or if it just fits the story better, but I really, really like it. They're letting Nathan be involved in police matters. I loved watching Bill and Rosemary be a team.
Mm-hmm.
But when they were doing everything and not including Nathan at all in a police matter that was happening in the town, hello. So I loved them working together, but I didn't think that it was utilizing the character of Nathan to his full potential.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have found ways to still make her the goofy detective, but he's still local law enforcement. He's gone on a stakeout. Bill has gone with him. So Rosemary says, and since local law enforcement is out of town, it's up to us. Giddy up, Elizabeth. But seriously, that take the local law enforcement out of town for a legitimate police matter. Bingo, you've got Rosemary being the town detective. And I love that he's being included, and he has been included even in the beginning stages of the double-headed eagle case.
Mm-hmm.
They went over to his house and talked to him about it and involved him and got his opinion, and he was involved, and then they did this part and he did this part. I like it so much better.
Yeah, agreed.
And it was pretty cute when he came up to tell his best girl that he's going on a stakeout. And he did something different. He finds all of these new ways to be cute every episode. Dang it.
So disappointing, I know.
Okay, I have to tell you two things that happened on Instagram that I found today. One of them was an edit of Goldie looking up and seeing Nathan. I didn't even see it in the episode, but this was focused on Goldie's face, looking up and seeing Nathan and breaking out into this huge smile. And I just went, she knows, even she knows, which he's probably spent time with her off camera, but never mind.
Yeah.
And then Suspenders Unbuttoned put this whole conglomeration together of romantic moments and romantic gestures. And I commented, do not view while operating heavy machinery. Because some industrial accident is bound to happen.
Oh, no. Nice. Well, I'll have to look for those. The little children. Okay. No, I thought that scene was really great because again, it just shows the growth of that they've had together as a couple, and her especially in being in a relationship with the Mountie and having to deal with him going off into dangerous situations at the drop of a hat, with very little warning. I'm sure we'll probably at some point have a situation where he doesn't have a chance to tell her that he's going, and she hears it from someone else or gets a message, sent to her in some way. I mean, those kinds of things are going to happen when you're with law enforcement, and she's handling it beautifully. She's being very mature about it while still, being rightly nervous and worried, but in a manageable way.
Well, and he's handling it beautifully. He goes up, tells her immediately. He is as honest as he can be. We talked about that several episodes ago. He is as honest as he can be. He's having Allie stay with her because Canfields are gone. And then she says one of her signature lines, Be safe. But it adds another layer. It just adds another layer to why I love this relationship.
Yeah.
Because both of them are handling their own side, their own respective sides with such grace. And it's so relieving. I also noticed that this was one of the first times that we have seen Nathan and Elizabeth in a private conversation where he did not remove his hat. Every time he approaches her and he has his hat on, he always takes it off to talk to her. When she approached him with Ava after they had bought her clothes, he kept his hat on to talk to the two of them. But as soon as Ava left, he took off his hat, he looped his arm through hers and held her hand and started walking with her. Every time he approaches, if he has his hat on, he takes it off. And so that kind of, to me, shows the urgency, number one, and how desperately he wanted to tell her. He is all set. He is ready to go. He's not staying. He's got his coat on. He's keeping his hat on, but he has to tell her first, and he has to make sure his daughter is taken care of. But yeah, that was the first conversation that they have had privately where he did not remove his hat. And I just wonder if that was done on purpose or if that was a happenstance. Were we supposed to notice that? Or, just one of those things. Was I supposed to see
Great
that?
question. I love it. What I found so compelling about this situation that especially unraveled in this episode is that even though Elizabeth wasn't super directly involved in that storyline, she knows who the Garrisons are. She was around when all of that went down. And so
Yep.
she didn't have the same connection to them that she had like with the Tolliver gang and stuff like that. But she absolutely knows who Sonny Garrison is. She absolutely knows the history there.
Yeah.
And so her seeing the wanted poster up there, that was more than just, oh, I see a wanted poster up there. That's concerning. This is, I know who that is.
And that's where he's going.
Yeah. And she's making, she's making the connection to what's happening right now, but she's also knows the severity. She knows people were killed. She knows, what
that
some
her
of that
husband brought him to justice.
Yeah. There's so much to that. And she probably has potentially heard that his brother has already passed away and
Maybe.
that there's, So, I mean, there's just so much potential in that. They still all stay in contact with Jesse and Clara. And Jesse was the one that had such a tie to that. And so she would absolutely know the severity of this.
Okay. Question of the day. I haven't asked you yet.
We're there. Let's do it.
This is more of a trivia question. Can you retain this in your memory? What season did the Garrison gang first appear?
2, 3.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we know it was fairly early days of Frank,
and it was the first time we saw Jesse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think it's a shame that Jake didn't go by Jakey. We got Sonny, Woody. Where's the Jakey?
Jackson.
Jackson. It's like, wow, you really need to work on your cover story.
Very much so. He's clearly trying to get into the Garrison gang, really wasn't ever in it.
He
Doesn't
is skittish.
He's woo worse than Jesse in the early days.
Terrible.
Terrible. So yeah, he's asking for help. He wants to find this tree with his parents' initials. The kids are all over it. We'll get you there. They even get him paper and charcoal so he can make a rubbing. That's the sweetest. For what? For what? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, for the initials. Uh-huh.
Can't even remember his own cover story.
But also he's asking these kids for help. He's seeing these kids do all of this talking about going all over these woods. And he doesn't ask who they are or get any sort of information at all.
And then he gets all freaked out. Whoa, kid, you didn't tell me you were a Mountie. You didn't ask.
And what would have been great right then is honestly for someone to have been like, yeah, and she's a Mountie's daughter. Like, do you know what you have done? Do you know who you have just kidnapped? The worst two people you could have possibly accidentally taken into the woods.
Speaking of that Mountie cadet, we gotta give him some props for bravery. Raise your glass to Oliver, because he did great.
Oliver's like my new favorite character. He's just stepping up. He's proving himself every turn. I mean, I can't think of a better Mountie cadet. Like, who could be in that phase and still be like making those types of split-second decisions and
running a ruse with Allie, and they're playing off of each other and turning the two of them again. Once again, the intelligence level of the characters, if they can be swayed by a 17 and an 18-year-old, then they're probably not working with all of the circuits connected.
Exactly. So it was very well done. I'm really liking the character development, and it would be so great to keep Oliver on this show. I really hope that we continue to see him in the future. I mean, I want him to do whatever he needs to do to graduate and all of that, but I think this town's big enough for like 2 Mounties.
Well, you need a constable and you need a deputy, because obviously local law enforcement gets called out of town. So you leave a deputy in town and the constable goes to do the stakeouts.
I mean, Nathan's getting promoted in an upcoming episode. I feel like you could then have a regular constable working under him.
And we also don't know how long Oliver's been in school. We don't know how long he's been in the academy. So he could still have quite a while to go. Yeah. But I will admit, at first, I was a little upset. I thought it was flimsy the way Sonny grabbed Allie's arm and he made a half-hearted attempt to get him away from her. And then I watched it a second time and I'm like, no, that was not a half-hearted attempt. That was him doing a split-second reaction. He's grabbing this girl I feel responsible for, and I also happen to like, and get away from her. Gun right there. Fine. Okay. Backing up. So I was upset at first, and then I watched it the second time and I went, oh no, that he could not have reacted any other way. And then "Run, Mrs. Thornton!" And he's holding to the gun, trying to push back a man who obviously outweighs him. And I mean, he's showing some real true guts now. It is a dang good thing that Nathan and Bill and Henry rode in when they did. Not gonna say that Oliver all of a sudden turned into Chuck Norris or anything. It's a very good thing that those three rode up when they did, and it was such a hero's entrance too. Oh my gosh. I
don't know.
Hero's entrance, but Oliver did exactly what he could, and he had the guts to do it.
I don't know. I think next episode he could have some serious kickboxing skills. You just don't know. He could be Chuck Norris. We don't know.
No. Nathan teaches him. Oh gosh, what is great. Nathan teaching him a couple of skills on how to fight if he gets caught in that kind of a situation, how to neutralize a threat. Now that would be a cool scene to see.
It would be. I kind of like to see Bill doing it. Not that I don't want to see Nathan doing it, but I think it'd be kind of funny to see Bill trying to be all big and macho and be like, well, here's what you do, son.
Oh, okay. How about this? Nathan is teaching him. Bill comes upon them and says, let me show you how to do it.
How it's done. Let me show you how it's done.
Oliver takes him down with one punch or something like that.
That would be pretty great. We've written another episode. I love it.
But the big thing is the box is empty. The box is empty and the lock is broken.
I mean, I don't know how that surprised them as much as it did, seeing as how Sonny was already approached at the prison by law enforcement who had one of the coins, said they'd been being sold by this guy in the city. Like, I feel like he had enough information. This is why he broke out, was because he had good reason to suspect someone had gotten to their coins. So I was just a little surprised that he seemed so shocked that someone had gotten to the coins.
My guess is they kept some.
And he thought it was a different one.
They kept some to have for themselves to circulate and stuff like that so that they could have some gold coins, and then they buried the rest of them. Also, Nathan said it himself, a down on his luck rancher. He was keeping a whole lot of secrets if his niece thought that he was a bankrupt rancher, or he had a gambling problem, either one.
Or McGinty was, extorting him for money, just like he's extorting everyone else now.
So you think McGinty has all of the coins?
I think McGinty has them now. Yeah.
In the preview for the next episode, McGinty is confronting Nathan, and Nathan almost looks more angry at McGinty for mentioning Allie than he did at Sonny for kidnapping Allie.
Yeah, I just found that a little strange. I'm sure it was off screen. I'm sure there was more concern shown off screen. But yeah, Nathan seemed a little bit more concerned back when Elizabeth was being held at gunpoint in the saloon at the end of season 11. They had to kind of hold him back when he found out Elizabeth was in there. Whereas this time it's a known murderer that has his girlfriend and daughter and another child who he's tasked with keeping safe as he trains him.
Mhm.
Like pretty much the three people you don't want the murderer to have in the whole town. And he just kind of stayed very professional. He just did what he had to do. He got there, he rode off really fast. He didn't show a lot of emotion in those scenes. And so that was just a little surprising to me. However, he was in the moment, he was having to be professional. And I think that also makes sense.
He's getting used to his girlfriend and his daughter getting into scrapes.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't lose your cool every time it happens. They're constantly just getting involved with murderers. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Okay, so number one, I think that was more about reaction time.
I do.
And yeah, so Henry comes upon them because he says, "What?" And he says, "They went that way. Turn around and go. You know, don't think, just go." And then when he gets there, if he didn't if he didn't get in the situation and neutralize it, then something bad would have happened. So he he went in there and he acted, and we also only saw Sonny Garrison, "You're under arrest," and then the scene cut. So we didn't see him turn and say, "You two okay?" So
No, no,
yeah.
it was just a little funny.
My other thought with this situation is, what the heck was Elizabeth thinking?
Cowbell solves everything. More cowbell.
I know Jack gave it to her, but it doesn't have some magical saving power. I thought she was at least gonna whack him on the head with it. You know, but no, no, and I realize she rang the bell because she knew people were nearby, and if she made enough noise that she could get them to come that way. But
It was pretty funny. It was pretty funny. Like it's, oh, there's a murderer. I better take my cowbell. Get out there and save the children. Like it honestly made it better because it was so ridiculous that you're just like, oh, she's a school teacher. She doesn't know how to fight off bad guys, even though she's had to do it a lot.
I'm surprised that in that first month of their marriage that she didn't have Jack teach her self-defense. And she wasn't throwing some punches of her own.
Maybe that's what's to come. Okay, maybe Nathan can be teaching her and Oliver at the same time. He could do a little self-defense class.
I don't think that Oliver should be present when he's teaching Elizabeth
Oh,
self-defense.
they can have a practice session later.
Well, discussing this episode was definitely entertaining. We hope that you had a whole lot of fun. So I know it's empty and that's considered bad luck, but oh well. Cheers to a great episode, and we'll see you next time.